Hello, everyone. It's Marcy from Nina and PNS here, and today I have the 2023 National Association Notary of the Year. That was a lot of N's in there. Christina Hough. Thank you, Christina, for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcy. Really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to have you. So now we were just having this long conversation before I started this recording. I probably should have started the recording as we were chit-chatting before, because we're talking a little bit about the NNA conference, which is where I met Christina in 2023 when she received this award. That's amazing. And it's so funny. We were talking about my little saying of competition, a community over competition. Like, I'm not really a big fan of that, and why I love conference. And you said some amazing things. So I'm going to make you repeat what you love about conference for everybody out there who's never been to a conference. And so everyone knows we don't get paid for saying this. There's no kickback on our end. We really do love conference.
Yeah, conference is so great. So one, the NNA team is just fantastic overall. It's a super warm and welcoming environment. And you can tell that everybody who's attending is excited to be there. They want to be there. They want to advance their skills as a notary, learn how to better conduct business, make connections, network, just kind of, have that 3-day period where they can connect and grow and seek mentorship, or maybe mentor other people, and build those connections, and just be in a really warm and welcoming environment where you're always kind of excited to be there, right? You're like, okay, we're going to do the gala this time, or we're going to see this speaker this time, or that's an interesting topic, I hadn't thought about that before. So it's just a really great place to kind of relax, but also learn and grow and have a lot of fun while you're doing it, because you're meeting all these people that are really excited to be there, excited to learn and grow. And it's communal, like you said, it's very community minded, and you just have a really great opportunity to network with other notaries.
It really is so amazing. Like, I say this about the NNA, and people are like, oh, I love how accessible they are. For such a large organization, everyone there is super accessible. You can talk to anybody from the president all the way down, and like they're happy to chat with you, to have conversations. They really are just a warm, accessible, professional group, and they do an amazing job for conference. But let me ask you, how long have you been a notary, and how did you get into being a notary?
Yeah, so I've been a notary for a little over 19 years now, since May of 2006. My former employer at the time asked me to become a notary because we worked on a lot of documents that required notarization. So things like mechanics liens, or notice of lis pendens, or release of mechanics liens. So kind of any kind of document that would require recording, for example, like a lien or a grant deed, or kind of real estate minded transactions. And yeah, I'm very grateful for that, because it's led me now, 19 plus years later, and I'm sitting here with you talking about it.
Isn't that so funny? Who would imagine? No, I always say no one grows up being like, hey, someday I want to be a notary. I mean, it's not a thing, right? Maybe it should be. Maybe we should start it and make it a thing. But the opportunities that it presents for people, I just don't think they're aware of it at the time, right? You think a lot of times of notaries is, well, let me just walk into the bank. I need this paper, no, signed and notarized, and then go home. Like, the amount of varied things that a notary can do now that they're commissioned really is, you know, so wild when you think about it. You can do regular notarizations. You can be a general notary and a mobile notary and loan signings, and you can go out there and do field inspections, or you could do proctoring or digital reporting. Like, there's all these things that open up for notaries. Did you find that, like, when after you were in it for a while, were you a little surprised at really how far you can go with your notary commission?
Yes, yeah. So, initially I had just started doing notarizations for my employer at the time, but then I started doing notarizations, on the side after work or on the weekends. And, the thing that I found awesome about it was that I was, yeah, as a mobile notary, when I started doing mobile notary work, is that I was going to places that I hadn't been before. And so it gave me kind of a new perspective on the area that I live in. And part of that is meeting people that you wouldn't normally meet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a really cool part of being a notary, I think, is that you get exposure to people that you wouldn't normally meet in your day-to-day life, right? So you could be in one city, and then 2 hours later be in another city if you're depending on how you book your appointments, and that's really cool. But also too, like sometimes, like here in San Diego County, there's a lot of rural communities, and so I've had a lot of notarizations in kind of areas that your average person doesn't go in because they're more rural. They're less populated. There's less access to notary services in those places. But I said, okay, well, I don't have a problem going there if I have the time and I can make it. Why not, right? So then I started venturing out into some of the more rural communities in the mountain areas, out in the desert areas, and so it was really cool because you on the way there you're seeing this landscape, and so as you're driving you're seeing these beautiful trees or mountains or hills or sometimes animals, right? I was telling Daniel one time that in one of the rural communities I went to, I saw a mountain lion as I was pulling up the drive.
That would be amazing.
And that was just like a really like, whoa, I've never seen a mountain lion that close, right? But it was really cool, just one of those experiences that, you're going to remember, right? Because,
Mhm.
you're not going to see a mountain lion on your average notary.
Let's hope not, but that doesn't happen all the time very often. But I did love what you said, and that was one of my favorite parts of being a mobile notary. When I used to do a lot of driving, I don't do that amount of driving anymore, but we have very rural areas here. So, my route used to be like an hour and 45 minutes away. And I used to laugh because I would have a full day and people would be like, oh my gosh, did you make a lot of money? And I was like, well, sort of. But then, on the way back, I would stop at a fruit stand, right, and get all the fruit. And then the next stand was like an antique shop. And I was like, oh, I love antiques. Let me go in here and, buy something. And the next one would be like an Amish bakery stand. And I was like, oh, let me get some cookies or banana. Like I just remember coming home with like this big load of stuff in my car. Halloween pumpkins. Let me grab my pumpkins way back. So I'd be like, I did make good money, and then I spent like half of it on my way back. Um, but you do, I know it's so funny. Uh, but you do get to venture out into your community. And I often would go to places that I was like, man, I lived here my whole entire life and I've never been on this street, in this community, like in this area. It really does become sort of an eye opening experience, right? I feel like it really brought to me a little more understanding of my community and the diversity and the culture here. And certainly, like you said, you meet people that you would never, ever meet at, and depending on how big you are or where they are, right? Like you get to hear people's stories. That's what they love about having a mobile notary is you go into their house and now they want to tell you things, right? So I'd come back and be like, I met a man who got, struck by lightning 3 times. Never telling his name or whatever, but there were just cool stories that people told you that you wouldn't normally hear because you weren't in that set of circumstances, right? I mean, being a mobile notary and going to someone's home or the nursing home, the hospital does put you in a situation that's really unique and it lends itself to them wanting to share with you. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's really good. You do meet like and you meet characters, interesting characters, and they have, like you said, they have interesting stories, and maybe they might direct you to, a store or a shop or whatever where you meet somebody and I don't know, your life goes on a different trajectory, right? But yeah, I think that's great. And also too, I think, when you do go to the more rural areas and you can stop by those places, like you said, like a farmer's market or a shop or whatever. But if you're spending money there, you're contributing to the local economy too. So there's so many different benefits that I think you have as a mobile notary, besides, seeing new places, meeting new people, but also too, you're contributing in some way along the way, right?
No, it's true. And I think that's so important to remember is that while the community supports us, it's important to support the community that we're in too. Tell me now, like, is that what you do full time? Are you a full time traveling mobile notary? What else do you do?
Yeah, no, I actually work full time in the in-house legal department of a fleet safety and video telematics company, but I do the notary work on the side, and I do that often in the local community here where I live, but I also venture out, when I have time, either after work or on the weekends. A lot of the work that I do is on a volunteer basis, so it's not about the money, it's about, giving back to the community. And I really love that because you're helping people that are so, so grateful. They either don't have the means to pay you or otherwise, and it's just really awesome to see how grateful they are. And, you can literally change someone's day with like a single act of kindness, right? So I think that's a really huge plus for both me as a notary and someone wanting to give back, but also for the person who is able to receive those notary services.
So, what would you say to a notary who's like, I have a full-time job, like I would love to do this on the side. I don't think I can do it. Like there isn't enough time or no one will give me work or like can you talk a little bit about how that happened for you and how a notary who's looking to do that around their full-time job can still do it and be, profitable or give back to their community somehow?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of opportunities with different organizations. For example, a lot of the volunteer work that I do is for the San Diego Volunteer Lawyer Program. So for their HIV/AIDS clinic, I do a lot of notarizations related to estate planning documents for their clientele. And there are lots of legal aid type organizations out there that may do that in different communities that those people may be in. So it's a way to kind of get their name out there and get their foot in the door, but also really contribute to the community, right? And then also, too, I think number one thing is make sure that you're good putting yourself on Google, because when people look for a notary, they're looking notary near me, right? On Google, right? So if you're on Google, you have your phone number there, you can have your email address or a website. And most of the people that call me are from my Google listing, and also too, so if you say you work in one place and you live in another place, you can have more than one listing, right? So that kind of broadens the scope of people that can contact you for services.
Yeah, an online presence is so important when it comes to being a mobile notary. I always tell notaries, like, join every neighborhood Facebook group and tell all of your friends because so many times someone will post in a group, hey, I need a notary. Where can I find a notary? The bank is closed. Like it's just one of those things. And then I can't tell you how many times my friends tag me. Oh, Marcy, right? And they're in half those groups that I maybe not are not in there all the time. So agreed, having that presence online is so important. Tell me what you love best about being a notary. Like what is it that you find so unique to this, or at least for you, so important?
Yeah, so a lot of it is about access, right? So in those clients that I'm able to help in the rural communities, for example. I had a client, several years ago who lived in a rural community and they had contacted many different notaries, more than 20 different notaries before they came to me and I said yes to have someone come out to their home. And so that is it. If you can provide access and you have the time to notary services to someone, I would say do it. You can make it on a time that's convenient for you, on a date that's convenient for you. But also maybe within the desired date range for that particular client. But I think a lot of it is about, one, being available, especially to people that wouldn't normally have access. And then two, you're helping to build community and you're helping to provide access, right? And so through that particular person, they referred me to another rural community that was like 30, 40 miles away from them, right? And so then they called me to have, perform notary services on their behalf as well. And so it's that kind of word of mouth and, your willingness to kind of accommodate someone, right, is really going to help get your name out there. But also, you're really bringing access to services to someone, right? And I think that's like the main thing is making sure that you are available if you have the means to communities that won't necessarily have that availability.
We certainly play an important role. I'm having a hard time talking today. We certainly play an important role out in society. I always like to make a joke that the world doesn't turn without notaries because we're so involved in every aspect of just about every demographic and industry out there. Like someone always needs something notarized. If you could look into the future, what would you like to see happen here in the notary world? Like we always talk about more education, better education, stricter guidelines, all of the things. Like what would you like to see happen in the notary community going forward if you could have your wish?
Yeah, I think again, going back to the kind of original topic we discussed is community, I mean, notaries serve so many purposes in the world generally. You're talking about real estate transactions, identity verification, compelling truthfulness, right? So you have all of these different things that you interact with, like I know I've notarized tons and tons of different types of forms over the years, right? From a custom shipping form, right? To I-9 stuff, to the real estate transactions, powers of attorney, estate planning documents. You have kind of this broad range of things that notaries are required for, and it's so important. And like it's so true what you said, the business of the world doesn't happen without notaries. And I don't know if you recall this, but we were considered essential workers during the pandemic, right? Because we need to keep business and real estate transactions and all the things moving, right? So there's really a good opportunity in being a notary and to venture out and do different kinds of different transactions as a notary for different reasons and different purposes. For example, notaries often work with attorneys, so that's a whole different, kind of scope of services, signing affidavits, because some courts in certain states require that a declaration under penalty of perjury isn't enough. They want you to appear in front of a notary and have, sign in front of a notary, swear under oath in front of a notary, right? And then, you have all kinds of things that you can do, the oaths and affirmations here in California. So there's lots of different kind of areas that a notary can kind of branch out into to expand their kind of wheelhouse of services that they provide.
It's true. All of that is so true. I so appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. It was so nice getting your perspective. And I want to again congratulate you on your NNA award. That's really amazing. I think that, you set an example for the notary community, one that we should certainly all follow. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Thank you, Marcy. And I want to say congratulations to you again for your 2025 Notary of the Year award. It's such an amazing and inspiring package that we got to see at the NNA conference this year. And I love that you're doing this and bringing this knowledge and awareness to other people across the board.
I appreciate that so much. This is the perfect time to wrap because you may have heard my dog congratulating you in the background as well. She wants to say, "Yay, Christina." That's what she's saying in dog speak. So, anyone out there who thinks my dog is randomly barking, she's not. She just wants to say congratulations to Christina. So, thank you all for tuning in. I so appreciate you. I appreciate you, Christina, too. And I will see you all on the next one. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.